Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Maureen O'Connor from Quilters Heaven in Northbrook, Illinois, and I am the Opinionated Quilter. Today's episode, number 115, is viewer comments. But first, I'd like to thank Margaret from Ohio for introducing herself to me at Bernina University. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And while I'm mentioning Bernina University, I have to tell you that new top of the line machine, the 990, unbelievable. I was a little worried with all the hype that there could be some overpromise and underdeliver. Did not happen. It is a really beautiful, wonderful machine. If you're near a Bernina dealer, I'd go in and take a look when the floor models come in. Before I get to the episode, I would like to give you a quick opinion, and it's Die from Sister Chicks. Again, she hits a home run. She had an episode recently, and we'll have a link in the description, where she used a layer cake. And I know so many of you have layer cakes sitting on your shelf, and rather than leaving them on the shelf, this is a perfect opportunity to make a really quick, beautiful quilt. She calls it her easy transition quilt. And what I really liked about it was she kind of just started and then was like, oops, I see a little mistake here. Do you see what's going to happen? And she easily corrected the issue and made a lovely quilt top. So I encourage you all to use those layer cakes. Okay, let's get to the episode. This episode, I'm going to address comments. So I'm going to have to refer a little bit to my sheet here to remember them all. And let's start with the latest episode, which was corrections. And I got 3 comments, all saying the same thing, and I think it's really a good idea. And that is to check corrections right away when you bring home a pattern. Because oftentimes you might have a problem and it's already been corrected on the designer's website. So it's always good to check for corrections. You might still want to check again prior to starting the pattern because you could have checked when you first bought the pattern home and then a correction coming in and you missing it because you checked it, 2 months earlier. So it's always good to check for corrections and patterns. One thing that I didn't think about, and I should have because it happened in our shop, 2 people said that they had incorrect measurements for the side setting and corner triangles on point quilts. And that can be really problematic if they're cut too small because you obviously can't make them bigger. So they then have to go into your scrap pile and you have to replace the fabric. So one thing I'd like to encourage you to do is to check the measurements of the side setting and corner triangles. We use the chart that was from Bonnie Hunter's website, but there's also this one, and that is Kimberly from the Fat Quarter Shops chart. And she goes all the way from 1.5-inch block size all the way up to 20-inch block size. So never a bad idea to just double check the measurements that they're giving you to make sure that you're not going to cut your side setting triangles too small. If you set them too big, that can not be a huge problem because you can trim them down. But if you cut them too big and they gave you an accurate yardage measurement, you then might not have enough. So I think that's a good practice to have, is to double check those measurements. The last thing on the bad patterns episode was I got a comment from Leona Noland 3017, and she said, how about no pattern? She got a box of fabric, sounded like from a friend or somehow, knew she sewed. And she got a box of fabric and a photograph. Now my hunch is that at some point there was a pattern in there and it somehow got separated from the box in the photograph, but at any rate, that's how she got it. So Leona, please send me your address to quiltersheaveninc@gmail.com. I'd like to send you a little something. I think that's pretty crazy to get fabric with a picture and no pattern. Next, the next issue I'd like to go over is the cutting episode, the cutting machines, the scan and cut versus the go. And I got an absolutely scathing review from one woman. And I'd like to address it a little bit. First, she said that I said you have so many extra pieces cut that you have to make 2 quilts. I rewatched the video to make sure that I did not say that, and I didn't. I have no problem with all of you having difference of opinions than I have. That's what makes the world go round. But I'd really like you to not say that I said things that I didn't say. So I've got this quilt behind me. That was what my example was. And with the Hunter Star quilt, I said that if it's a 2-color quilt, that the dies work great, and also if that's the size block you want to make. The die that I have is the 6-inch block. And they do show, I should take it out of the plastic so there's no glare. They show a red and white quilt. And that works fine for the die because all the pieces are so close together. Now, one of the things that this woman said was, of course, you don't put fabric over the whole thing. You just put the color fabric over the shape that you're cutting. Well, in this die, they're all butted up to each other. So in my example of a 3-color Hunter Star, I needed gold on the star points, and I needed reds and greens on the half square triangle and the trapezoids. So I went ahead and followed her suggestion, which then you have to cut pieces for each size shape that you're cutting. So to me, that right away makes the process longer and more difficult than using what I like to use, the Deb Tucker way. So I went ahead and I put yellow pieces on the trapezoids, and it's going to be kind of hard to see here. Yellow pieces on the trapezoids and the half square triangles, and the red pieces on the 2 star points. So I fed it through, and I haven't pulled it all off yet, but let's see what we get. That's clearly not a whole piece. Okay, we got waist here. Here I got a star point. That's waist. Didn't cut through quite everything perfectly, but not bad. Waist, waist. Here's some more star points. Got a whole star point out of the yellow, which was excess from other things. So it's not real efficient if you're not using the 2-color method. Here's some trapezoids and waist. So there's my pieces, and this is the waist. So unless I cut these really close to size in every for every piece, you're going to have more waist. And if you cut them too close to size and you don't get it positioned exactly right, you're going to get pieces that aren't whole pieces that have little bits cut out. So I still maintain that I much prefer the Deb Tucker Method, that you get 4 sizes in one ruler, and you do overcut and then trim down to size. And that's just my opinion. I like doing it that way. If you're going to do a 2-color 6-inch block, this is going to work. The other thing that this commenter said was, if you sew a 1/4-inch seam allowance, your pieces will fit together perfectly and you'll get a perfect block. That's 100% correct. However, I don't know any person that can sew an accurate 1/4-inch seam allowance 100% of the time. And that's why I like the overcut and trim down, because it corrects our slight sewing mistakes. The complaint that this commenter had on the scan and cut was that the blades don't last long. Well, I haven't had mine long enough to know how long they last, so I really can't comment on that. That it goes so slow. Her solution for the kinds of appliques that people use the scan and cut for, her solution was, because it's so slow, to trace the shapes with a light box, then you can place the shapes very close together onto the fusing material. Then you rough cut the fusing material, fuse them onto your fabric choices, and then use an X-Acto knife on a cutting mat for precision cutting, that they're better for scissors, better than scissors. So I'm sorry, tracing on a light box, then putting the shapes on the fusing material, then fusing, then rough cutting, then cutting with an X-Acto knife, that's faster than the scan and cut cutting. That just didn't make sense to me. And I think I was very fair on the cutting. AccuQuilt Go, fast, lots of shapes, several layers of fabric. Great, especially for people who can't cut because of physical issues. Really good for multiple things. The scan and cut is more for one shape, one block. Yes, it has lots of waste. There's no doubt about it, but you'd have that waste if you were cutting out with the scissors too, and you get a whole lot more accuracy. That's enough on the cutting. The last issue I wanted to talk about was a review of a couple of products. One person asked me to test this grippy product. And I have to tell you, Carol and I in the shop just loved it. Got to grab my sample. I took 2 rulers. That I knew I wasn't going to use. These are Dear Jane rulers, and you won't catch me making a Dear Jane quilt anytime soon. And we sprayed the grippy on the back of this ruler. And we did not spray it on this ruler. And just moves around, doesn't move. This almost feels like the Quilter Select rulers. Now, you can feel a substance on here, and I don't know if it wears off after time, but I'm giving a big thumbs up to the grippy. I think it was terrific. The other thing I did recently was I purchased a new rotary blade sharpener. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a long time, I said in an episode that after buying these kinds of products for many, many years, anything that would sharpen a rotary blade, I kept buying them and buying them and buying them. And I said, not going to do it anymore. None of them work. Well, I got sucked in and bought this True Sharp 2 blade sharpener. And here it is. And I tried it on a dull blade. And it wasn't a horrible, horrible, horrible blade, but it was not good enough for what I like to cut for my sewing. And I put it in there. I followed the directions. It said you might have to do this 10 times. I did it maybe 5 of the hit the sharpen button and put it into the cutter, into the handle. I think it was worse than when I first put it in. So I wasted money again. I think I might contact the company and say, what could I possibly be doing wrong? But for me, it didn't work. I am going to try to find out if I've done something wrong and see if I can get it to work. And if I do, we'll update that in a future episode. But for now, didn't work for me. Okay, that's today's episode, except for the winner of the Heron quilt. Most people said I was right. It is a Heron. One person said maybe a crane. Another person said maybe an egret. But at any rate, the winner is Gemini Peg. Gemini Peg, please send me your email address. Not your email address. Send your physical address to my email, quiltersheaveninc@gmail.com, and we'll get that out to you. This is our next giveaway, and I haven't said this recently, and I did just have a winner from Canada. Please, U.S. addresses only. If you do want to enter and you're not a U.S. address, we'll have to work something out on the shipping because it's cost prohibitive to send these out of the States. This is a quilt top that I made years ago. And I know that it's a Blue Underground pattern. I don't remember what it's called, but for now, I'm calling it Rows of Bricks. It's another big one. It's 57.5 by 76. And if you would like to have this quilt top to finish, do you remember what you need to do? You need to subscribe, comment, and in the comment, write Rows of Bricks and like the video. So if you can do all those things, you'll be entered into the drawing to win this quilt top, I should say. And good luck to everybody. And that's our episode today. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, happy sewing.